All right, this is Mr. Research. We're going to dig into something with the Black Brain Trust brought up. Just to give you the qualifiers for me, uh, been formally in tech since the days of Vista. Worked across the street in Bellevue, Washington at Atari. Moved over to Gateway Computers. Uh, Went to Atlanta, got into American Megatrends hardware, and then went back into software at MindSpring when they got bought out, and went over to Earthlink, and Earthlink was the last place that I was at. Then I got into medical. So, with all that said, I'm glad that intellectual black men are coming forward and we're having intellectual conversations. Let me tell you the problems going on with black computers employees, black computer employees. I don't call it black tech because I believe technology is really engineers. But let's talk about this internet thing that we have, software. This is the third time we've had this Silicon Valley explosion. We had the dot coms, then we had Webvan, and now we have this. We got to remember this has only really been going on since 2008, maybe 2009. I'll even give it 2006. Um, we almost at 20 years of successful computing. It hasn't busted yet. Here's the every industry is suffering, and I've been pointing this out for decades. People say go get a trade. Well, you don't have the HR representatives pulling you in regardless of your skill set. And Mike V and a couple other people at the Black Brain Trust were talking about, yeah, you have a problem in black computing where people are qualified but they're not getting hired. And I've been telling y'all, they're not getting hired because people who are doing the hiring are trying to hire people from their country so they can trampoline into tech and into something else. They're using tech as a trampoline. They've been doing that for quite a while. They're not staying in tech. They're pulling people from their country who can pass the interview. They're having people like Mike V and Nagone train the people. The people stay for 2 or 3 years to satisfy their visa, and then they're off doing something else because they never wanted to do tech in the first place. Or they're doing tech and people are getting hired, but then you see the layoffs and you're like, okay, why aren't people getting hired? Because people are not passing the application process. Most people are hiring friends, LinkedIn friends. If you don't work with somebody I know, then I'm going to pull you in that way. Nobody's getting fresh meat. Nobody's getting fresh meat because the people who are doing the hiring are trying to hire people from their country. It sounds screwed up, but when you go work at some of these places, and I did a small little 2016 stint at a artificial intelligence place in Berkeley. When you go to some of these places, you'll see one or two demographic of people, white or Indian. That's the primary. And then when you talk to these people, most of them don't know anything about computing. They just know this current thing that they got to do. And then 6 months later, everything changes, or 2 years later, everything changes. Then they're out of a job. You don't know how many people I've met who were superstars in the 80s and 90s, and then in 2000, 2002, 2005, they couldn't find no work. It's like that. I had a guy who was my boss in 2016. He was a superstar, 17, 18 years old, had all this money during the IBM days, bought his wife a house, all this, couldn't find no work for almost a decade, and finally got a job in 2013. No, 2014. And he was living with his wife's mom. That's how bad it got. Because people are not hiring. Technology needs to be unionized. You cannot be pulling people from other countries while they're people here in the USA who are qualified to work. Or, if you don't like the union thing, there needs to be qualifiers through the unemployment office that companies must pull from the unemployment office pool first before they can apply for a visa. Because again, people are making this claim that they're not qualified people to work. That's a lie. It's even happening in my industry, in medical. The computer reads your resume. No actual human reads your resume. The computer reads it and determines whether you can even get to see the HR rep. The HR rep filters through it and then throws a bunch away. So that's two things you got to get past, and then you get to the actual manager. The actual manager don't get to see all the resumes. So that's what's really going on. We have an HR problem. We have an HR problem on a whole nother level, and it's affecting every industry. Mike V talked about burnout. Yeah, you're going to have a lot of burnout because most of the people who are managing are terrible managers. They don't even know how to manage. They just got the position and got the pay. They don't know how to really develop teams. No, they just know how to be in charge of teams. That's why so many people are like, hey, I got this new guy, you train him. Well, I thought he's supposed to be qualified. Why do I need to train him? Shouldn't he just jump in? Oh, no, I don't want him to do that. I want you to walk him through. So what's the purpose? Why don't we just get a person who just graduated school and walk them through and see if they got the aptitude to do it? Mike V, Black Brain Trust, I'm telling you, we as intellectual black men are rare because we don't have a pipeline for a lot of these dudes to get straight in because the people who are doing the hiring are blocking for no apparent reason. And then those of us who are black, more than likely the Africans, they don't believe in black, so they ain't trying to pull nobody in either, even though most of them might have got in because some white guy had a affinity for black people, thinking this is a black guy. Well, he doesn't have that thought of pulling people into the group. So we have a human resource problem, a big human resources problem. And unless we get people, and this is why I was saying about women. Women were supposed to pull their brothers in. Women were supposed to, but it's a difficulty when many of the women and men are just out for themselves. Then why would these other groups not think for their group? They're not trying to pull a bunch of blacks because that's not their group. Blacks are supposed to be pulling blacks. Blacks are supposed to be pulling in blacks, but that's not happening. And that's really where the sad part is, man. Black men are their own demise because we don't have the thought process the 1950, 1960 brother had of pulling people in. So you're relying on your skill set to pull you in, but that's not the culture of how employment in HR really works.